Are you ready to become a hero?
Now, the suit has power. You have to learn how to control it. And these are your greatest allies.
You're kind of cute. Whoa.
When you're small, you have superhuman strength. You're like a bullet. So you need to know how to punch.
You want to show me how to punch? Show me how to punch.
That's how you punch.
You tried to hide your suit from me. Now, it's gonna blow up in your face and destroy everyone you care about.
Scott, get out of there!
Did you think you could stop the future? You're just a thief!
No. I'm Ant-Man. I know. It wasn't my idea.
So if you're a Marvel fan like I am, then you must know that Marvel's Ant-Man is premiering in his first movie in July of this year. But what exactly does an Ant-Man do? Welcome to Comicisms, your friendly neighborhood comic book nerd center. I'm your host, Danny Mac, and today we'll be talking about one of my personal favorite characters in comics. Seriously. That's right, a wild Ant-Man has appeared. Bad jokes and references aside, Ant-Man has a pretty rich history. So, for a quick rundown, the original Ant-Man, Henry Jonathan Hank Pym, was first introduced to us in Tales to Astonish number 27 in December of 1962. However, he only went by his name Hank Pym, and didn't don the titular name of Ant-Man until several issues later in Tales to Astonish number 35 in September of the same year. Ant-Man is most notably remembered for being a founding member of the Avengers lineup, along with other heroes like Thor, Hulk, Iron Man, and Janet Van Dyne, aka The Wasp, as well as being the original creator of one of the Avengers' most recurring enemies, the dastardly AI known as Ultron, which I'm sure you're all familiar with by now. Of course, during the course of Marvel's extensive comic book history, Hank Pym hasn't been the only one to don the mantle of Ant-Man, as it was later passed on to successors, thief with good intentions turned hero Scott Lang, who was being played by Paul Rudd as the lead of Marvel's Ant-Man movie, and cocky, manipulative S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Eric O'Grady, who we as Ant-Man fans almost never like to talk about. But the fascinating thing about the Ant-Man persona isn't necessarily his long history or his list of feats. It's his abilities. Now, given from watching a couple of Ant-Man trailers and maybe poking around the internet, you'll find out that Ant-Man can shrink to the size of an ant or grow to the size of a tall building, but that's it, right? I mean, how complicated can comics be? Hashtag sarcasm, because here we go. Ant-Man actually utilizes something called the Pym Particles, which are nothing more but fictional but rare subatomic particles that Hank Pym discovered, which he was trying to entrap inside of a magnetic field in order to break them into two different serums. One utilized for shrinking, and the other, of course, for growing back to normal size. However, upon shrinking, he found that he drank much too small for his liking, and he found himself trapped with no way to get back to the growth serum. You know, classic shrinking conundrum. Naturally, he ventured outside and fell into an anthill, and barely escaped with his life before getting to the other serum and returning to normal size. Naturally, after an incident like that, just like anyone else would experience after that, he decided to trash the serums, rationalizing that they were much too dangerous to use. But this wouldn't be comics if it just ended there. So of course Marvel decided to tickle our nerd spots by reintroducing Hank Pym as Ant-Man, when he decided a few weeks later that maybe these particles that made you shrink down to a small size were probably worth looking into. To summarize it neatly, Pym became fascinated by ants after his time in the anthill, because who doesn't become obsessed with something that was trying to eat them, right? But anyway, after enough studies, he came to the theory that ants communicated by transmitting electrical waves that be construed as psionic communication. Using this, he created his helmet, which used these same frequencies to communicate with and control ants and other nearby insects, which he would eventually use to help fight crime. He used these talents to make the Ant-Man name known and would eventually help found the Avengers. He continued to refine the particles, eventually turning them into a capsule form, which brought about a new persona for Hank under the well-known moniker of Giant Man, first appearing in Tales to Astonish issue number 49 in November of the following year, 1963. In Giant Man's first incarnation, he was able to grow to 12 feet tall and proportionally augment his strength. However, there were some drawbacks to growing so tall, as the bigger he got, the more strain on his body just to keep himself from his own weight of collapsing on himself, resulting in making him weaker at first the larger he got past 12 feet. He eventually managed to grow past 100 feet, by the way, in which caused severe strain and damage to his body, which led him to leave the Avengers for a while. However, Hank returned eventually under the name of Goliath for the first time in Avengers issues number 28, where he and the Wasp were able to will themselves to naturally use the Pym Particles due to prolonged exposure. This time, the Pym Particles would allow him to grow to 25 feet tall for a period of 15 minutes at a time. His last persona, Yellow Jacket, was one created of Hank's mental strain and guilty conscience for creating Ultron. He was still able to use the Pym Particles prolifically, but used them on others to a certain degree. Now, these Pym Particles sound neat, but really, how do they work according to science? I mean, how does one just shrink or grow? I mean, is it just that simple or overly convoluted that we don't know how to explain it? Well, it turns out it's a mix of both camps, considering that the comics are, at times, very vague about how Pym Particles actually function. However, the clearly defined law of the particle states that excess mass the user sheds while utilizing the particles must still exist, so therefore it gets sent to the cosmos dimension to wait until the user recalls that mass back. However, for growing to increased heights, mass is borrowed from the same dimension in order to add to your already existing mass. Pretty straightforward, right? The thing is, there's even more to it. The Pym Particles have allowed its users to shrink to a smaller plane of existence to the point where ant size seems gigantic. The first etching of discovery of other planes of microscopic existence was first theorized and originally discovered by Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four. However, it was Hank Pym that first descended to a place called the microverse, where one became the size of an atom itself. Now, this seems a little weird. You're like, hold on, if you shrank down to the size of an atom, wouldn't you actually suffocate? Aren't air molecules bigger than your current body? Well, normally yes. It'd be impossible to breathe under these circumstances. However, it seems that the microverse is a tiny universe that exists within our own, with molecules and everything else of its own relative to its size. So surviving is possible, apparently. But let's take it another step further than that, if that's even possible. How about shrinking out of existence, and then growing past that into the next one? Well, Pym's managed to do that and more when he reached a different realm of reality known as the underspace and the overspace, the latter of which is where the cosmic entities, such as eternity, reside. It's a little complicated, but to explain the levels from top to bottom, at least as far as I understand it, at the bottom of it all lies the underspace of the universe, which sits below the microverse. Then there's our plane of reality, the macroverse, and then the overspace or oververse, which is an abstract realm of reality where Hank Pym and eternity. It was here that he was granted the title of Scientist Supreme of Earth. So that's a lot to process, isn't it? But what do you guys think? Do you like the idea of Pym Particles and the overall concept of Ant-Man? And do you think Pym Particles will make an appearance in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Let me know in the comments below what you think, and if you have any more thoughts based on this video. And if you like this video, please give it a big like and a subscribe on that subscribe button. And also leave your character suggestions down in the comments below, in case anything you might want to see from us here at NerdHype and Comicisms. Anyways, this has been Danny Mac, signing off. I'll be back next week with another video. And don't forget, believe the hype.
Be sure to subscribe to us here on YouTube, but also check us out on Facebook for updates and memes on comics and gaming, as well as Twitter @TheRealNerdHype to find out when we go live for the Infinity Cast on twitch.tv/NerdHype.